So this is us arriving into St. Petersburg, Russia's second largest city in population, over 5 million. That's just the urban area of the city itself. But St. Petersburg, a city synonymous all over the world with culture. UNESCO have listed over 4,000 historical monuments and sites of historical architectural note here. This is one of the cultural capitals of the world, St. Petersburg. Now, those of you who've watched our film from Moscow, we're going to be doing things a little bit differently here from St. Petersburg. St. Petersburg is a place that people just start taking photos as soon as they arrive here at the station, because as soon as you come into St. Petersburg you just feel just a wall of culture, just like you're walking into a cultural epicenter, St. Petersburg. So we're coming out now of the city's Moskovsky train station. As you can see, a fair bit of renovation going on behind. So it'll all be ready for the World Cup. A fair bit of building work going on there. Get it all renovated and ready, and we're out onto the city's most famous, iconic, legendary Nevsky Prospect. Just like that. St. Petersburg. Now there's a film you absolutely have to watch. You can find it with English subtitles. It's called, in Russian, Brat, English brother. And whenever I arrive in St. Petersburg, I always feel like the character in that film, Daniel Bagrov, arriving in St. Petersburg to look for his brother, but of course back then it was very different St. Petersburg. I'll just show you some short extracts of that film to give you a sense of St. Petersburg in the 90s. Some extreme cleaning there. But back in the 90s, when the film Brother, which we just saw a few moments of, was made, St. Petersburg had gained a reputation for being rather a destitute city, crime-ridden, gang overrun. It was down at heel. It was a very different city to the St. Petersburg we see today. If we look around, it's ready actually for Victory Day, you can see up there. So the first impressions when you arrive, the city's clean, there's lots of people here, lots of fashionable people, young Peterburgians, lots of indeed beautiful ladies. It is modern St. Petersburg 2018, and here we are on Nevsky Prospect, named after 13th century Prince Alexander Nevsky, taking a stroll along. Super-sized Russian dolls there, matryoshkas. Just come from Moscow, there's certain things you notice as being similar. There's plenty of people, there's urban, just loads of motion, movement, loads of just waves of people, traffic, bit of skateboarding there. So there is certainly that sense of a mega city as with Moscow, but the atmosphere is quite other. And we're now crossing over one of hundreds of bridges, crisscrossing the iconic, famous rivers of St. Petersburg. And then you sense that you're somewhere really other than Moscow. The atmosphere quite different, quite distinct. St. Petersburg. Finish to YouTube. YouTube.
Hello.
Hello. Hello guys. Thank you. For YouTube. Now I've been coming to St. Petersburg since 2009 as a tourist. Here's a couple of selfies. I don't know if we call them that back then, from 2011. And so to come back, and I've been a few times in between, of course, but to come back, you know, there's some things that you recall. So there's the majestic feeling of being on Nevsky Prospect, something quite unique. There's the crossing the bridges, looking down on the boats, there we go, as they go by. And then there's a lot of things that are new. There's a very new stretch of road here, Nevsky Prospect, just down there. Very new stretch of road. Now I've said that this is going to be a bit different to Moscow. So you may be asking, in what way and how? Well, for starters, I was in Moscow for quite a while. I was staying at an apartment there, my friends, a little bit out of town, so lots of time to show you everything we did in Moscow. In St. Petersburg I've only got 4 days, so it's going to be absolutely packed. Have to just really, I mean, the amount of, gosh, the heat is on to try and do justice to St. Petersburg. So time is shorter, that's one thing. Robert Waldo, he was a big bloke, no question. And in Moscow there were a couple of rainy days that well, just it's difficult to film when it's rainy. So Moscow had the option of having a couple of days basically doing other things when the rain came on. In St. Petersburg there is no such option, so if it rains here you're going to see the rain because there is no time to escape with the rain. So it's come on just now. Oh, and that's another difference, is I've got some friends in St. Petersburg. Irina.
Hi.
Great to see you.
Great to see you.
Serena, Nastya.
Hi.
Привет! Oh, that's another thing. I'm staying in a hostel in the centre. A hostel right in the centre so as to make the most of the time. So it is here, number 4, simple hostel. So no time to stop, just checked in and we're off.
So we are in the very center of St. Petersburg, so you are welcome.
Thanks, Irina.
To St. Petersburg.
Very happy to be here in a little bit of rain, St. Petersburg style.
Yeah, but the weather is included. And we have rain from 1703. The weather in the city changes like a mood of a capricious lady 6 times a day. So, the city is very young. By European standards, by English standards, even by Russian standards, we are babies. You know that the city was founded in 1703 by Peter the Great. You know who I'm talking about.
I've heard of that guy.
In the course of the war with Sweden. And I have to say that we didn't start that war. It was started by Swedish. And Peter just wanted to show to Swedish that Russians came forever, that Russians would never retreat from here, and we're still here. And in 1712, Peter the Great transferred the capital from Moscow to St. Petersburg. Until 1918, this city was the political center of Russia, the capital of Russia. In 1918, Lenin, Trotsky, Sverdlov, and all those guys, I mean the Soviet government, they packed their suitcases and moved back to Moscow. And they're still there. So, about the name of the city, it's German name. St. Petersburg is not Russian. No wonder in 1914 we changed the name because of the First World War, the war with Germany. You know, our last Tsar, Nicholas II, and Kaiser Willy, they were cousins. It didn't help. Anyway, they attacked. We were very disappointed and had German pogroms and changed the name of the city to Petrograd. Grad meaning city, so the same, just in Russian style. Until 1924 we lived in Petrograd. October Revolt happened in Petrograd. And then Товарищ Lenin, Comrade Lenin died. And by requests of working people, city was given the name of Lenin. Until 1991 we lived in Leningrad. And then Perestroika broke out. And in 1991 we voted for changing the name of the city again. We had two options: Leningrad, everybody was fed up, and St. Petersburg. You may ask me why not Petrograd, especially after the Second World War, when we lost, some say, half of our population of mass starvations. We didn't have that option, and majority of us said yes to St. Petersburg. That's why welcome to St. Petersburg.
How many people still call it Leningrad? I've heard even some people still say Leningrad.
Some people, especially elder people, still call it Leningrad, but we call the city Peter, and we call ourselves Peterцы.
So you're from here, born here?
No, I was born in Leningrad. And I grew up in Leningrad, and then I voted for changing the name of the city. So my personal story is the history of this city. It's one and the same for me.
Part of St. Petersburg.
Работают все радиостанции Советского Союза.
My assistant Nastya is also filming. You're a tall, elegant lady, Irina.
Thank you. This is Mariinsky Theater, and we're trying to get the tickets to get culture.
So now the plan is to get a ticket for something tomorrow. I want to do something cultural. It's St. Petersburg, capital of culture. So it's 900 rubles, a bit over £10 in the current exchange rate, and just like that, I've got myself a ticket to the opera here in St. Petersburg. We are rolling. I'm just in town, got my opera ticket, and it is on in St. Petersburg.
One of the eldest churches in St. Petersburg, St. Nicholas Church, built by the order of Elizabeth, the daughter of Peter the Great. And it's not a secret that St. Petersburg is built by guest workers, mostly by foreigners, mostly by Italians. So I'm proud to say this is Russian production. It is built by a Russian architect, Sava Chvakinsky, but his tutor was an Italian. And this church was not closed, not a single day. Let's say from the very middle of the 18th century, in this church, every day they had services. And it's a very unusual church because there are two churches in one building. On the first floor for everyday occasions, and the upper one for special occasions.
St. Isaac's Cathedral, one of these places that is just so awesome to be next to. So struck by the beauty of it. It takes your breath away. Really, you can't quite, you feel like you're kind of, you've walked into a postcard. She's gone Russian.
And you will like the name of this embankment, Английская набережная. It's very old name. You know, Peter the Great invited a lot of foreigners, and among them were English craftsmen, engineers, you know, architects, and of course, English congregation. They settled all together. So this is the right place to make a wish. If you look at these bronze statues, we call them grifone. You see, their heads are polished because here people make wishes. So if you believe that, you can make a wish.
So I would wish for our film to get more than 100,000 views on YouTube. That's a wish.
You should keep a secret.
Oh, it's a secret?
Yeah.
Said it now.
Yeah.
It's too
Once you said, failure.
I'll change it. I'll make it 250. So these are the griffins.
You have to change the wish, yeah.
Change the number. I think something about St. Petersburg. The weather is not great, but people are having an amazing time. People are loving it here.
We are from Indonesia. Hi.
Hello, Indonesia.
From Indonesia.
And how do you like St. Petersburg?
Oh, very much. The beach?
How do you like it here, St. Petersburg?
Nice. I like it very much. Bye-bye.
Bye,
See
Indonesia.
you. Bye.
We're pleased to see you here.
Behind me is the legendary battleship cruiser Aurora. And that night when October Revolt happened, the cruiser Aurora was 2 bridges closer to the Winter Palace, and 9:40 p.m. they made a blank shot towards the Winter Palace, and that shot was kind of a signal of the beginning of October uprising. As we say, we still hear the echo of that shot. This is the actor and movie maker. His name is Sergei Bodrov. And unfortunately, he died very young, so many years ago, but we still remember him because he made a lot of movies and they're still popular. And probably the best is called Brother.
I have to ask you, in Brat, St. Petersburg in the 90s looks like quite a scary place.
Oh yeah, it was a scary place in those years. It was very special, you know, time of changes. Yeah, and Sergei Bodrov, let's say, is the symbol, the face of that time.
Ты снимаешь вечернее платье, стоя лицом к стене, и я вижу свежие шрамы на гладкой, как бархат, спине. Мне хочется плакать от боли или забыться во сне. Где твои крылья, которые так нравились мне? Где твои крылья, которые нравились мне? Где твои крылья, которые нравились мне?
So we're in the very old place in the city. Alexander Nevsky Monastery, Alexander Nevsky Monastery. It bears the name of the saint of the Russian Orthodox Church, Alexander of the Neva River, the Prince of Novgorod, who lived in the 13th century, and he had been buried in the city of Vladimir. But Peter the Great decided to rebury him. When he started to build St. Petersburg, he decided to bring the remains of Alexander Nevsky to St. Petersburg. It took 2 years. And especially for the purpose, they built, let's say, this Alexander Nevsky Monastery, hence the name. The burial place of Fyodor Mikhailovich Dostoevsky is very well known all over the city, and people still come, people bring flowers. You will see it's decorated with flowers, and I'm proud to say that I know his great, I don't know how many son. His name is Dmitry Dostoevsky, so he lives in St. Petersburg.
French?
Yeah, they speak French. For all these people, let's say it's over. The game is, you know, it's over.
But they made their contribution.
They did. We still remember them, you see? In so many years, we talk about them, we think about them, we listen to their music, we're impressed, excited. I think Tchaikovsky is the best, not because he's Russian, because he's Tchaikovsky. Probably, for sure, Dostoevsky is the best expert when we talk about Russian soul, русская душа. He knew such details, he predicted, foretold so many things. If you read his Besi, Crime and Punishment, and so on.
Lakiti Tower. It's going to be the tallest building you see in St. Petersburg, 400 meters.
462.
462 meters when it's complete. 462 meters!
Together with the spy, it's gonna be almost 500.
I mean, the shard is 306. It's like a shard and a half. Robert Waldo, Wysoki Człowiek. We're now coming into the St. Petersburg metro. It is the deepest metro system in the world. We're going down and down and down, and the deepest station is 80 meters deep. So it's almost like a journey to the center of the earth. St. Petersburg metro system, very beautiful as well. It's right here. Swan Lake. You cannot come to St. Petersburg without some connection with Swan Lake. We already went down a long, long way, and we're going down and down still. Just tunneling in. Jules Verne, St. Petersburg metro style. And then you get to the actual station itself, and it is a work of art, like an art gallery. Of course it is. It's St. Petersburg. Who had the idea of running metro trains through this underground art gallery? Who knew? Where we're going now is like an alternative tour thing to do in St. Petersburg. We'll go up on the roofs. We do have a tour guide. I'm not going to show him because while this is absolutely not illegal, it's also not part of the official St. Petersburg tourist approved experience, so it's a little bit off the beaten track, up on the roof. So while I'm not just pitching up there myself, we do have a tour guide. I'm not going to show him just because of the previous reasons given. He shall remain a bit of a mystery man, although he's ahead of me. He's a lovely chap, and we are now going up on the roofs of St. Petersburg. thing about being up in the roofs of St. Petersburg here is that you just want to jump on another one. You see it, we've seen it so many times on Bond and Spider-Man, you just want to, it looks so close. Couldn't really come to St. Petersburg and not do a boat tour. It would be like going to Venice and not doing a boat tour. Now in the city of St. Petersburg, with over 70 cultural institutions, theatres and the like, you can't not do something cultural. There we go. Lovely. And so, to that end, you saw me yesterday. We went and got the first ticket to something cultural we could, which is an opera called Attila. Have to check. And this is myself coming to a night at the opera. Well, I must admit, in the first place, I'm not the biggest opera fan in the world, but I'm ready to take a punt, and you just can't not do something cultural in St. Petersburg. It is the just cultural epicenter of the world. Is that too much? But it's a biggie. So I'm here to do something cultural, the opera. I'm in the balcony, so keep climbing. So here at the opera, let's have some culture. I might actually be an opera fan now. That was amazing. It was epic. I was feeling that.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Огонь! Вечер!
Now we've come some 40 kilometers outside of St. Petersburg city itself. Here, Peterhof, and this is the Russian Versailles. Now the site here at Peterhof was first conceived by Peter the Great in 1705 as a landing area for warships. The surrounding area, the Finnish Gulf, was too shallow, but this afforded deeper access. Now at this time, the Great Northern War was going on against, well, this was Russia and allies against Sweden and allies. Great Britain, interestingly, changed sides during this war, but in any case, it ended in 1721 with Swedish defeat and established Russia as the dominant power of that time. This Peterhof Palace ahead of me here began to be constructed in 1710, and it's now a UNESCO heritage site. Now the grounds are absolutely free to walk into, so we just rocked up and you can walk through this spectacular tree tunnel, this passage here. Wow. Now as well, and we can see all around me the spectacular gardens, the landscape gardens, and we have what looks a lot like Neptune up there. We'll have to Google that. Lots of tourists all around, some selfies going on. The three main areas are the Grand Palace, the Grand Cascade, and the lower gardens. We can see here a fence up to my right and restoration going on. Now it's something you really have to consider when you come here to Peterhof, because you can look and just be stunned at the sheer beauty of it all. I mean, just overwhelming, amazing, just beauty. But of course this isn't just a historic palace that goes back to the start of the 18th century. This is a more recent and a more tragic history. Nazi German forces took the territory of Peterhof in 1941 and stayed here until 1944. In that time, the Red Army made several valiant attempts to retake it, but were repelled. They finally retook it in 1944, and what they found was the site had been just wrecked by the Nazis. Looted historical artifacts, wrecked, the scene of just devastation here. Reconstruction began immediately and goes on to this day. So we see not only the roof, but we see behind me here this area tarpaulined off, where renovation and reconstruction continues to this day here at Peterhof. So I paid my 900 rubles, that's a bit over £10, for my ticket, and I'm now inside the territory of Peterhof itself. And look all around, look at the beauty we can see surrounding me. I think it's absolutely time for a montage showing you some of the most beautiful moments of Peterhof, with a fitting soundtrack rendered hopefully in a way that reflects the just awesomeness of where I'm at just now for your enjoyment. And of course you remember that tower we saw a little earlier. There is just so much to see here. You could walk around literally for days and still be finding new. There's sights to see everywhere. There's sculptures, there's monuments, there's amazing landscaping, there's beautiful nature, and there's tourists everywhere, all around. In fact, the tourists themselves are their own attraction. Everyone's having such a great time. Everyone's in the mood. There's selfies everywhere. Everyone's having so much fun. Just loving it, just in awe of the whole experience of being here. You can't help but feel just kind of privileged to be in the presence of such beauty, but also it's fun. The atmosphere is just an experience, the Peterhof experience here. I'm on the way out now. There is of course a museum in there and a gallery also. Lots of classic, amazing works of art that I've got to rush now to St. Petersburg, so not quite at the time to show you. So you forgive me for showing you a few stock images from there. I was here actually as a tourist back in 2011. There's a photo of myself at this very spot, and look at this, the Thunderstone. This is the largest stone ever moved by humans. It weighed 1,500 tons. It was carved down to 1,250 in transportation. And look at that man-made feat here in St. Petersburg. Now it's called the Thunderstone because legend has it that thunder split this enormous piece of granite which came from, you remember that skyscraper we were at the other day, Lachta, some 20 kilometers from here? Well, from there emanated this enormous piece of stone on which Peter is atop, as we see. That was pulled from there, from the ground in which it was embedded, and it was moved the distance, that's some 20 kilometers, by 400 men. It took 2 years to reach here, its final destination, and while it was in transit, it was being whittled away by master craftsmen, carving away at the granite to form the structure we see before us. Now, there are many stories and legends connected to this striking statue. It was actually commissioned by Catherine the Great, who was a German princess who married into the Romanov line, who didn't have a legitimate claim to the Russian dynasty. So what she wanted to do was to attach herself with Peter the Great, the legend thereof, and one of the ways she did so was by commissioning this statue, which we can see Peter's steed trampling on a serpent, which has variously been interpreted as treachery, as evil, as Peter's enemies, all these iniquities, and we can see Peter's steed giving it a real good trampling on up there. And the statue is the work, the genius, we can say, of French sculptor Etienne Maurice Falconet. It took 12 years to complete from 1770 until 1782, by which time Falconet had a bit of a falling out with Catherine the Great, so wasn't even at the grand unveiling of his masterpiece, pedestal of which 7 meters, statue 6 meters, giving a rather immense height for a statue which is itself a symbol of immensity of 13 meters. Now, 19th century legend has it that while this statue stands, St. Petersburg will never fall into enemy hands, will never be taken, and that holds to this day. During the siege of Leningrad in World War II, it was covered in sandbags, there was a wooden shelter constructed, and in fact it was undamaged by Nazi German shelling of St. Petersburg, Leningrad as it was then. And true to this day, as the statue stands, St. Petersburg has never been taken, and it remains a symbol to this day of St. Petersburg. We can see all over the world the icon that represents St. Petersburg, as proud as it ever was. Now what's going to happen now is going to be like a whistle-stop tour of the things you have to see in St. Petersburg, but my time here has absolutely flown by. The days have just flown away. There is just an infinite amount of things to do, things to see here. So this is going to be a whistle-stop tour of what you absolutely have to see, but whistle-stop because I haven't had time to spend more time on them, because in St. Petersburg there is an infinite amount of just amazing. I mean, look at this behind me, Church of the Saviour and the Blood, an icon not only of St. Petersburg but of all of Russia, constructed in the honour of Alexander II, who was fatally wounded in this spot by political nihilists in 1881, constructed by his son Alexander III, starting in 1883, completed under Nicholas II in 1907. This 81-metre tall, just incredible monument which is undergoing renovation at the moment. But I mean, look at that, the beauty. Now the church is one of the most beloved sites of St. Petersburg. It's known all over the world, and it is quite simply breathtaking. It comprises over 7,500 mosaics, and the outside there are mosaics representing all of the cities of the Russian Empire. Now, open to tourists, of course, the inside, and beloved by tourists. And in fact, we can see here just a constant flow of people coming by. There's photos going on. We see over here this young lady posing for a photo. There's a duke over there. There's a musician riffing away down there. So just a constant flow all around of people, of photos, just all in the auspices of this just wonder that we see, Church of Saviour and the Blood. First in Russia Museum Soviet Lifestyle. You'll have to Google that one. So we're walking now up the canal. Gribodoedova is the name. Zhenya corrected me. Gribodoedov. Thanks. And we come to this here. It's, as we call it, the Singer building, but in Russian, interestingly, it's translated as the Zinger building. I'll tell you about that in a moment. What I wanted to show you now, in fact what you have to see in St. Petersburg, is the Singer building. Although it translates in Russia as the Zinger building, it is the Singer building, constructed for the Singer Sewing Company at the turn of the 20th century by their American owners. They wanted it to be a skyscraper like in New York, but Russian law said it couldn't be taller than the Kazan Cathedral nearby, Petropavlovsk. So it ended up as 23.5 meters. But what brilliant 23.5 meters it is. We can see this amazing dome topped by a glass dome, topped by another glass globe, with these just incredible sculptures. This eagle just in a crescending form coming out of the architecture, just incredible. It was known as the House of Books, and in its day it was the largest bookshop in St. Petersburg. And actually now it's still a bookshop, but there's also a cafe in there, It's the headquarters of the Contact, and there's all sorts of interesting things going on in that just architectural marvel. And as I say, it was my mum's favourite building when she came to St. Petersburg. Absolutely loved it. You can go and sit and have a coffee in there and look over Nevsky Prospect. In fact, there's even people up in that glass dome at the moment, I can see. And people all around taking photos and just, like myself, looking at it in awe. 69 meters long, 62 meters high, and Pushkin himself has written lines in its honor. Kazan Cathedral, again open to the public. Again, one of the beloved sites of St. Petersburg. And we look over there, we can see a sailor, and that is no coincidence because this is the Admiralty building at the top of Nevsky Prospect. 72 meters. It was the former head of the Admiralty, the Russian Imperial Navy, and it is to this day the headquarters of the Russian Navy. Beautiful spire, so beautiful that Nabokov even wrote about it in 1933. And of course the fountain that is beloved of selfies. Where we are now, Palace Square. It's obviously it's close to sunset, and we're coming to the end of our whistle stop tour, although there is a final and rather amazing treat in store. What we can see behind me is the Alexander Column. It's the largest of its kind in the world, 47.5 meters tall, 500 tons. So heavy, there's no even attachment at the base because it is just so immense. I mean, look at that, the largest of its kind in the world. In fact, this square is 5.4 hectares. We can see all around me. Just, in fact, preparing for Victory Day. That's why we've got the stage going up there. And in fact, this square is noted for legendary Victory Day parades on May the 9th. We can see, as I say, evening's coming in, and in fact, as I was saying, this square, of course, 5.4 hectares compared to Red Square's 2.3, so just a lot of space, sun setting. Soon there's lots of people, locals, tourists milling around, and I've been rather cunningly filming it from this angle because if we come around here, what we're now going to see is just, well, in the whole world, there's only the Louvre, there's older or larger as a museum, the Winter Palace, but known, of course, as the Hermitage. The Hermitage, over 3 million works of art and artifacts, closed for the day because if you wanted to see those 3 million in their entirety, obviously they're not all on display at any one time, but if you did want to see all of the 3 million, it's been estimated that would take you several years to do, so we could really be here for quite some time. As it is, what we're going to do is we're going to have a look at some of the highlights of the Hermitage collection. Now the Hermitage has its beginnings when Catherine the Great in 1764 acquired some rather impressive artifacts from Berlin trader Johann Ernst Gutkowski, and that was the beginning of the Hermitage we have today. Now in total in the Hermitage there's 233,000 square meters of exhibition space. The 67,000 actually that you can visit in the Hermitage, and an estimated, if you were to walk it all, 20 kilometers of walking. So this is a real like marathon of museums. So the sun's setting, obviously this is the other side of the Hermitage. Now I'm going to take a little recess and return to hopefully end the St. Petersburg finale as I get set to make a move from here. Hopefully show you something really spectacular to finish with.